Kakadosh Boker Or, Masechet Nazir Daf Amud Aleph 25a1. We're just going to start in the two dots on Kaf Daled Amud Bet 24b, where it says, Hayula Ma'ot Situmim Iplu Lenedava. So we already just said that if a person had money which was Satum means that it wasn't separated for which Korban, meaning he had money which was separated. But he didn't say, this one is this one's that. He didn't say anything. Okay? Fine. So ayulo maot stumim iplu lenedava. Says the Gemara, v'lo dmei chatat muravim bahen. 1 second. How does everything go to a nedava? If you're giving it to a nedava, fine, makes sense. But what about the chatat? The money of a chatat is inside. So if the money of a chatat is inside this money, there's maot stumim. What does it mean maot stumim? You have money, and there's money of a chatat inside of that. So if it's going to be like that, so what are you going to do exactly? Yeah? You have chatat, and chatat cannot come as a nedava. Chatat's a sin offering. Remember, chatat can never come as a nedava. So answers the Gemara. Amar Rabbi Yochanan says, Halacha Moshe min Sinai. It's Halacha Moshe min Sinai by a Nazir. What's Halacha Moshe min Sinai? Halacha Moshe min Sinai is that Ma'ot Stumin, you're going to come to a nedava, which means that even though you're going to have the mei chatat, right? Because that was like, the halacha and everything. Right? This is what's going to happen. Okay? Resh Lakish comes and he says, Lechol nidrehem ulchol nidbotam. What does that mean here for all their nidarim and their nidavot? HaTorah Amra, the Torah comes and it says, Motar neder yehe lindavar. If a person comes and he makes a neder, right? Bekorban, betorat neder, for example, as we already mentioned, and there's going to be left over a korban, right? Without, possibility of giving it. The Motara neder is going to be given as a nedava. Now, even though you have the mechatat, it's a special thing that you're allowed to do it. Only to do with the nazir. Okay? So he comes and he says, fine. Bishmal Rabbi Yochanan says, Rabbi Yochanan, I understand. Rabbi Yochanan was the one that says, and it's only to do with a nazir. So amtulahachi, so because of that, money which is stumin, you could do that. But if it's going to be mefurashin, you cannot do that. Remember, mefurashin means that they designated this money is for chatat, this money is for the olah, and this money for the shamim. But according to the Shakish, that he says lechol nidrehem ulchol nidbotam, that he says that if it's going to be as a neder, and then like the neder of nazirut, and then you cannot bring it for whatever reason, then motar, the leftover, will always go as a nedava. Why then situmin only? Afilu mefurashin. Even if it's going to be mefurashin, it would be the exact same halacha. Yeah, it would be the exact same halacha. So Amar Rava says Rava, Meforashin lo matzita mart, right? You cannot come and say by Meforashin, Kvar psaka Tana de Rabbi Ishmael, because Tana of Ishmael already paskind, Rak kadashecha asher yu lecha undarecha tisa uvata lamakom asher yibchar Hashem. What does that mean? This pasuk, it looks extra, because we already said in Vayikra, the entire din of korbanot avolah u'shlamim. So what are we talking about now that it says, only the holy ones, which are going to be to you, then you could bring them. What does that mean? We're talking about the vladot, the children that come out of the kodashim, meaning you came and you consecrated an animal, and all of a sudden it gives birth. Right? Or, right? It gives birth. Yeah? You have a vlad. Vlad is a child. Yeah? Or, for example, be'emot of a tmura. What's a tmura? Tmura is a substitute. So what is the takana? Right? What is the takanatan then? What do they do? At the end of the day, it says which means you have to bring them to the Bet HaMikdash. So yachol ya'alem lebet bechira. I would think that you could bring it to the Bet HaMikdash. And therefore, bring it to Bet HaMikdash. Don't give them water and food, and then obviously they're going to die. What does that mean? You're going to make an olah. Just like you do by an olah, that you sprinkle the blood on the mizbeach and you bring it, yeah? You have to do by the tmuna as well. And just like you do by shlamim, you have to do by the vlad. What about now the blood of a chatat or tmurat hasham? I would think that you could also do the same thing. Remember that a chatat and a sham is the exact same thing. A chatat is a sin offering by accident, and a sham is a guilt offering, which is done on purpose, right? But they're both sin offerings. They're both things to do with sin. So I would think that you would also do the same thing to do with their vlads and the Tmura. Talmud Lomar comes to teach you Rak Kadashecha. Right? What does it mean, Rak? Rak comes to exclude that the bringing of the Vlad and the Tmura is only by an Olah and Shlamim, but not by a Chatat and an Asham. You don't bring it. These are the words of Rabbi Ishmael. Rabbi Akiva, Omer Rabbi Akiva says, I don't need this. Harei Omer, it already says, Ashamhu. What does that mean, Ashamhu? It comes to teach you that only the Asham is the one that's going to be brought to the Mizbeach, and not the Tumura of an Asham. Remember, Tumura is a substitute. You do not bring a substitute of an Asham. So it has nothing to do with, because of the Svara, you're not going to bring a Chatat and a sin offering as a present, but rather because it says Ashamhu, Dafka the Asham you bring. You do not bring anything which is not the Asham, even though it is a substitute of an Asham. Katani, but we learned, I thought you could bring it up to the Bet HaMikdash. Don't give them water and food, and then they're going to die. Comes teach you, what does that mean, V'asita olotecha? Amai. Says the Gemara, why? Havlad chatatu d'gmenim b'mita. Right? He comes and he says that it's going to be blood chatat, that it's a halacha l'Moshe Sinai, that it should die. So therefore, it's mashma from here that all the other korbanot, they don't die. So how could you come and you tell me that even the vladot of the shlamim, right, you're not going to give them to eat and they're going to die? Why do we need then v'asita olotecha? To teach you that you don't die. It's only a vlad chatat that you do such a thing. Meaning only by a vlad chatat you have such a concept that you have to leave it to die because you can't bring it on the mizbeach, but not by any other korban. So says the Gemara, Ilav Kra, if it wasn't for the pasuk v'asita olotecha, hava mina vlad chatat bechol makom. I would have thought to say that the vlad chatat you could make it die anywhere. You don't have to bring it to the Bet HaMikdash. Anywhere where you are, it's a vlad chatat. Make sure that it dies. Why? Because remember, you cannot bring the vlad chatat. You cannot do anything with it. So you just let it die. But where? Wherever you want. So therefore, it has to teach you vlad kodshim bevet avichira. And any other vlad kodshim, like for example shlamim or whatever it is, they also have to die. But they have to die bevet avichira. Kamash Malan comes teach you v'asita olotecha that the vlad shlamim is brought on the mizbeach like the shlamim itself. Okay, like the shlamim itself. Meaning it's not. That means I had a havamina. The havamina was that all the vladot die. What's the difference between the chatat and everything else? Chatat, anywhere where you want, right? And the shlamim, only the Bet HaMikdash. No, anywhere. You kill it in your backyard. Don't give it to eat and drink in your backyard, and then it dies. That's bechol makom. And the vlad of the shlamim, you have to bring it to the Bet HaMikdash. Comes to teach you v'asita olotecha. You bring it as a korban. Meaning the only one that dies is the vlad chatat. Other than the vlad chatat, you bring all the sacrifices. Okay,
Rabbi. This has to do with
25b says the Gemara Katani, but we did learn I would have thought that you would do the exact same halacha to do the vlad chatat mulat Hashem. Come teach you rak. Lama likra. Why do I need a pasuk? Why do I need the pasuk of rak? Ilchat agmira la vlad chatat lemitazil. We have halacha l'Moshe Sinai. Halacha l'Moshe Sinai is that vlad chatat goes to death. Meaning we don't bring the chatat. And if that's halacha l'Moshe Sinai, why do I need the pasuk? Rak kadashecha, only this and not something else. You have halacha l'Moshe Sinai. Answers the Gemara, you're right. Right? It's halacha l'Moshe Sinai by the chatat, but ukra le'asham udat. The pasuk is only for the asham. It's not for the chatat. Chatat, I already have an halacha l'Moshe Sinai. Halacha l'Moshe Sinai means I have a tradition from Moses. You know who Moses was here? Tradition from Moshe Rabbeinu, going all the way up. And therefore, you're not allowed to do it. But that's to do with the chatat. What about an asham? An asham, you didn't have a halacha Moshe Sinai. So if you have the pasuk, and the pasuk is going to teach you that it's only going to be the asham, but not the blood of the asham. So says the Gemara, asham nami l'chatei. What are you talking about? The asham is also halacha Moshe Sinai. Kol sheilu bechatat meta, the asham roeh. It says any case where if the chatat would go to death, right? So then the asham, you have to come and you're going to make a graze, but you don't bring it. You make a graze until it gets a blemish. And after getting a moon, what do? You redeem it. So therefore, if you're going to tell me that the Tmurat Chatat is one of the 5 Chatat, they go to the Mitah. So we already know from the Halakha Moshe Sinai that the Asham is Roeh. So therefore, if we already know it's Roeh, and meaning that it doesn't go to the Mizbeach, why do we need a Pasuk Rak? Rak Kadashecha Asher Yulecha Atisa Uvat Al HaMakom. Only this, but not the blood of the Asham. I already know blood of Asham because of the Chatat. Because if the Chatat is Meta, so therefore what happens to the Asham? Roeh. What does Roeh mean? I don't bring it as a Korban. I let it graze in the field. it gets a blemish, and then I redeem it. But it does not be brought as a korban. So if I already know from the Halacha Moshe Sinai that I know from the Halacha Moshe Sinai that a chatat is going to go to death, and from the same Halacha Moshe Sinai I know that if the chatat goes to death, the asham goes to be ro'eh. So therefore, I already know the asham. So I don't need a pasuk of rak, because the pasuk of rak is teaching my asham, and I don't need that. I already know that it's not going to be brought. But he says, no, you know why you need a pasuk? If you're going to tell me it's Halacha Moshe Sinai, I would have thought to say Hilchata, what is Halacha Moshe Sinai, right? Okay, fine. Halacha Moshe Sinai is that it's not vlad, chatat, it's not brought. But what happens if you did bring it? Meaning, you don't need to bring it. It's not brought. What happens if I brought it? There's no isur. Meaning, you don't bring it. But if you wanted to bring it, I tell you right now, right? You come and you ask me a question. I say, you don't have to give maaser. Yeah? According to halacha, you don't have to give maaser. You come and you give maaser. What happens? Nothing. There's nothing wrong with that. You give extra. So what's the big deal? Here it just says, I would have had the havamina from the halacha Moshe Sinai that it's not brought as a chatat. But if you did bring it, there's no big deal. Kamashmalan, dekra, deima kribla, kaimale beaseh. When it comes and it tells you rak, it comes to teach you that if you brought it, you'll ver on an isur, which is isur on a positive commandment, right? The isur aseh, which they learn from rak. When it says rak, it means only. Okay, it's fine. Now we're by the two dots. The two dots says Rabbi Akiva Omer, eno tzarich harei ben hashamu. Rabbi Akiva comes and he says, what are you talking about? You don't need all these things. It's a pasuk. The pasuk says hashamu, hasham b'vatoyeh, which means from there we learn that it's only the hasham which is brought, but not the tmuna, right? Not the substitute or not anything else. So says the Gemara, lama likra, why do I need a pasuk? Gemara, we already have a Halacha Moshe Sinai. Kol shebechatat meta be'hasham roeh. Anytime that a chatat meta, so by an hasham, it's going to be roeh. What does it mean by hasham roeh? It's going to be, right, grazing until it gets the blemishes. We already explained. So the Gemara says, hachinam, you're right. V'chiyat akra. So when is the pasuk coming and teaching us? It says, v'chiyat akra l'drav. We need it for Rav. Amar Ravuna Marav, it says Ravuna Marav, Hasham shenitak l'riyah. When you have an Hasham that it's going to be nitak. What does it mean nitak? It's going to be fixed, right, until it's going to get a blemish, right? Which means that it's going to be, you have to wait until it grazes. Ushchato l'shem olah. Now you went and you did the shchita before the moon, and you did it as a korban olah. Okay, one more time. You have an Hasham. It's not an olah. It's an Hasham. This hasham, the halacha was, you have to let it graze until it gets a blemish. Once it gets a blemish, you redeem it. You didn't wait. You're trigger happy. You know what trigger happy means? Right? You like to pull the trigger. Yeah? So what happens? Right? You went trigger happy. You like to pull the trigger early. Right? There's always in war when you have all the soldiers are all aiming, and then there's always somebody that's trigger happy. What does that mean? And it could be that he doesn't even wait for the command, and whoops, and he shoots. And all of a sudden it starts a balagan. Yeah, but they didn't all have the command to shoot. So they're all waiting, and all of a sudden, you have a problem. Yeah. So he brought the korban, but what did he do? He did the shchita for the korban as an olah, not as an hasham. One more time. The Amar Ravuna Marav Hasham shenitak l'riyah ushchato, and he did shchita l'shem olah kasher. It's going to be kosher. Yeah. Yeah. Tama denitak. Why? Because this was being fixed to become to the roeh, so therefore it's going to be as an olah, halonitak. But if it was not nitak l'riyah, which means that they didn't give it still to their shepherd, it's not becoming an olah, even though that the guy came and he did do the shechita. As for an olah, nothing. The Amar Krab, as the pasuk says, Hasham hu, avayato yeh. What does that mean? The Hasham still has a kiddusha, just like what it is. It's not going to be korban until after there's a mesira to the roeh. When you come and you give it to the shepherd, it's called mesira. You're giving over moser la roeh to the riyah, which is to graze in the field. You're giving it over to the shepherd. Then you could change it to a korban olah. But as long as it was not changed, it's not going to be kosher. So that's a drasha that they learn from Hasham. That the tmurat Hasham is kosher, right? Only, right? Shetinatek l'riyah. But etzem adin that it's not brought is halacha Moshe Sinai. That we don't need that. That we don't need. Okay. Fine. So now that we did that, Amar Mor, Halacha ibn Nazir. Now that we just did that, we're going back to the answer of Rabbi Yochanan. The Rabbi Yochanan said, why is it that ma'ot stumin, which means money satum, that was not segregated to say which part of the money goes to which korban? Remember that a Nazir brings 3 korbanot. Chatat, olah, and hasham. He only came and he put the money together, right? Chatat, olah, and shamim, right? Chatat, olah, and shamim. And what happened was that he came, he put the money together, but he didn't segregate which money for what. So that's called ma'ot stumin. Satum. Satum means I don't know which is which. Mefurashin means I said 500 for the shlamim, 400, whatever it is for the chatat, and I can keep going, right? That's called mefurashin. So here you go ma'ot stumin, and we said that even though in the ma'ot stumin you have money of chatat, you could still bring it as a nedava. Why? Amar more says, Rabbi Yochanan says, halacha ibn Nazir. It's halacha Moshe Sinai. Halacha Moshe Sinai is davka in Nazir. You say such a thing, that means even though you have money of chatat mixed up here in the rest of the money, you can bring everything as a nedava. Usually a chatat you cannot bring as a nedava. Here it's halacha Moshe Sinai that you could bring it as a nedava. So says the Gemara Vetuleka, there's no other cases that you do this. There's no other cases. We learned in the Braita, ushar chayave kinin sheba Torah. What about all the other people that are obligated, the kinim in the Torah? Remember that a kinim, right, is not with a kaf. If it's with a kaf, what does it mean? Lice. If it's with a kof, what is it?
Birds.
Right, the birds. Right, that's why you have the ken. Right, kan sipor. Right, so if you have the birds, right, whenever you're going to have the kan is 1, ken is 2. Okay, kan is 1. When you find 1 bird, it's kan. When you find 2 birds, it's ken mefuresh. That's why there's ken mefuresh and ken satu. What is a ken? Whether it's going to be yoledet, right, nazir, whether mitzorah, right, again, there's going to be certain people that they have to bring birds. Some of them bring birds as their regular halacha, and some of them will bring birds only ba'aniyut. Aniyut means if they were poor, they bring a bird. If they had more money, right, so they would bring the animals. Right? It all depends on what's the circumstance.
But the Nazir always bring the bird.
Yes, 100%. Okay, so he says here all the other chayve kinin in the Torah, which means that they're obligated to bring 2 birds. Remember, what are the 2 birds? Right, we're talking about one for a chatat and one for an olah. That they separated their money for their kinim. So now remember, one of them is going to be a chatat, one of them is going to be an olah. If you now come and you didn't say that which one is which, you separated money for the ken, and now you want to come and you're going to use this money for a chatat be'ema or for an olat be'ema, okay, you're allowed to. Met, if right now one of these chayve kinim died, and now he's got ma'ot stumin, yiplul nedava. So you see from here that this is going to be another case of any other chayve kinim, any other case, not only by the Nazir, that even though he's got money of a chatat mixed in, you could still put it as a nedava. You could throw it in as a nedava. So the Gemara is going to answer, you're right. It's like the Nazir and anything which is compared to the Nazir. And that's the Hashem that will continue.
What we learn is basically that